All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the CV Update. It has been a while, exactly 7 weeks since we last had an episode, and it is great to be back on the air, especially with football season just around the corner. And that will be the focus of our show today, as we will preview the upcoming 2021 NFL season, which begins this Thursday when the defending Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, welcome in the Dallas Cowboys to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, to first unveil their Super Bowl 55 championship banner and then kick off the new season. Joining me for this very special preview are Anirban and Ravi Bajpai. Guys, welcome back to the CV Update. How have you guys been? It's been a long time since we last talked.
Thanks for having us. I've been doing well. Graduated from school a few months ago, started new job in DC, so that's been good. And glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, same with me. Also graduated, started my new job, and just enjoying the summer right up until the end.
That is terrific. Congratulations on, of course, graduating and beginning your new positions. And no, this is a very exciting time of the year, right? Like, it's always like the first week of the season. At this point, every team, the fan base of every team is optimistic. So let's start with our predictions for the division winners and then the wildcard teams for each conference, the AFC and the NFC. So let's start with the AFC. Anirban, so what are your picks for the AFC this season for the playoffs, and NFC as well? You can go with that.
Sure. So I guess I can start with the division leaders, right? In the AFC East, I think the Bills are going to retain the AFC East division title this year. I'd love to go more into that. AFC West, I think Chiefs are going to continue pretty strong and take that. AFC North, I think the Ravens are really looking good this year, and in fact are a Super Bowl candidate. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them take the division there. AFC South, I think maybe a little more ambiguous, but I'd still go with the Colts. I think they've improved over the offseason. I think they have some exciting young receivers, and I'm excited to like Paris Campbell, for example. So
you're really buying Carson Wentz then? You're really buying the Carson Wentz experiment there?
I mean, it's an experiment, right? But I look at the other teams. The Texans are projected to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. The Jaguars, of course, do have Trevor Lawrence, but I do have some concerns about that I'll get on later, of course, in the show. Tennessee Titans are also, I think, up there for competition division. But overall, I'm just really excited about the Colts. I also think Jonathan Taylor is going to take a big step this season as a running back, and I think it's a very exciting team. Of course, how well Carson Wentz steps up is a big part of that, but I think it's worth a flyer at this stage of the season.
No, that makes sense. So, and then what about your wild cards, the 3 wild card positions?
Yeah, so I'm going to say the Patriots are going to take a wild card this year. I'm very happy about that. The other ones, I think I am kind of hoping to see the Browns up there again in the wild card this year, and the Titans.
Okay, that's the AFC. Okay, so we can start with the AFC first. Yeah, Ravi, let's hear your predictions for we'll do the AFC first, and then we can go with the NFC. So what are your AFC playoff picks? Division winners and then the wild card.
Yeah, for the AFC, I got the Bills also retaining their division title. And then bit of a difference with the nearby. I have the Browns taking the AFC North. I initially was thinking that back when we thought Carson Wentz's injury was more severe, I thought the Titans would take the AFC South. But now I'm gonna go back to the Colts with the Colts. Now that we know that he will be back for much sooner than we thought, and finally have the Chiefs taking the AFC West, pretty unsurprisingly.
Wow, what a shocker, right? Kansas City in the AFC West over Denver or LA Chargers. I guess the Chargers, I mean, with Herbert, that's probably like the next best quarterback in that division. He's good, but Kansas City, of course, right, in the AFC West. And go on with your wild card.
And for wild card, I got the Dolphins making it in the AFC East, as well as the Raiders and the Ravens.
Oh man,
the team that's missing there, Ravi.
Yeah, there's a team
that's missing. Very notable exception. Who's to say?
Yeah, okay, we'll get to that. All right, okay. That's interesting though. Like, it's good when people have differing takes on this because that promotes discussion. All right, I'll just go. So basically, I'm going to actually digress from you guys pretty big. So I think that
Bigly.
I'm going to go by seeds, right? So basically, the number one seed, big surprise, it's going to be the Tennessee Titans at the number one seed this season.
Wow.
Number two, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number three, the Buffalo Bills. And number four, the Baltimore Ravens. So basically, my four division winners are the Titans in the AFC South, Kansas City in the AFC West, Buffalo in the AFC East, and Baltimore in the AFC North. And then my wild cards, three wild card spots. I have the Patriots, the Cleveland Browns, and the Indianapolis Colts. So I do have the Colts as a wild card, but I'm going to go with a little bit of a surprise here with the Tennessee Titans. Like 2 years ago, remember they like went to the AFC Championship game riding Derrick Henry mainly, and this time like Ryan Tannehill, even though I am not a big Ryan Tannehill supporter, I think that he has enough players on offense, namely Julio Jones, the addition of Julio Jones and AJ Brown for year three, and he looked really good. And then you still have Derrick Henry, and their tight end situation is a little spotty because John Smith, of course, is now on the Patriots. But I still think the Titans have enough on offense to be a really good team this season. So I'm going to go with them as a number one seed. So yeah, those are my picks. I went with the Patriots as a wild card. I still think Buffalo for now has an edge, but I will say this: like the Bills, obviously I got to respect them for how they played last season. Like they were terrific, 13-3, the 2 seed. Any other year, that's probably the 1 seed, if not for Kansas City being 14-2. But I do think New England still has a shot at that division next season. Like I don't think the Bills are that much better than the Patriots right now. So I do think that the Patriots could make a run at the division title this season. But yeah, so I don't know. That's interesting. Let's go with the NFC now. Let's start with you, Ravi. What are your NFC playoff picks?
Yeah, so NFC East, that was a pretty difficult one for me, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys. Now that Dak's back, hopefully for a full season. Then in the North, I got the Packers. NFC South, the Buccaneers, and NFC West, I got the Rams.
Okay.
And then for the wild card, I had the Cardinals squeaking in just behind the Rams, the Saints, and the Vikings.
Okay, Saints and Vikings. So Saints don't miss a beat without Drew Brees. That's interesting. Okay. No. Okay. Okay. I'll go next for that. So NFC South, no surprise, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Super Bowl champions. I'm going to go with basically the seeding again. So my first four teams are basically the four division winners. So number one seed, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think, like every starter, all 22 starters returned this season. You have Tom Brady still there. He's still the best quarterback. I don't know. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, they have the accolades from recent seasons. I was like MVP and stuff like that. But I mean, in any given situation, you have the GOAT in Tom Brady, and he hasn't slowed down. So number one, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and their division is a lot weaker now with Drew Brees retired. So I think they're going to win that division pretty easily now. Number two, the Los Angeles Rams. I think with Matthew Stafford, they look pretty good, and I think he has enough playmakers. I'm still kind of skeptical on Matthew Stafford, but I think he has enough offensive firepower, and the Rams defense is still pretty good. So that's my 2 seed. 3, the Green Bay Packers. So they're going to slip from 1 to 3 this season. Number 4, the Dallas Cowboys winning the NFC East. And my wild card teams, the 5 seed, the Minnesota Vikings. Number 6, the Seattle Seahawks. And number 7, the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray needs to make the playoffs this season. Otherwise, Cliff Kingsbury's job is in a lot of trouble. So that's my situation. That's my predictions for the NFC. Anirban, let's hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of overlap here with a few differences. I do think in terms of seeding that Buccaneers will take one for the exact reason that you mentioned, retaining a squad, and if anything, being strong with additions of promising rookies, for example, in linebacker position. So I think they'll take the first. Second, I think the Cowboys can actually become much better this season, especially, of course, with Dak Prescott being back, a lot of their offensive line being back. I expect CeeDee Lamb to make a big step up this season. He's expected by many to have a breakout, though he had plus over 1,000 yards last season anyways. I think they're going to be a very exciting offensive team, so I'm going to put them at second. for third, I actually think Packers are going to come in third. I think, of course, like there was some drama with Aaron Rodgers, but I think they'll find a way, especially with Aaron Jones and an elite receiving core with some promising players behind Devontae Adams like St. Brown. And then I guess in fourth, I take it from the NFC West. I am a little torn on this. I want to say the Cardinals because I am a big Kyler Murray fan and also I'm a big DeAndre Hopkins fan. So I would like to see them play really well. LA Rams, of course, they have Matt Stafford, which is an upgrade over Jared Goff in the passing. But I think it's still, I think they are going to miss Cam Akers and running back, especially this season. I think Darrell Henderson has the threat, but at the end of the day, he would have been behind Cam Akers in their depth chart and they're going to miss him. So I'm going to put them at fourth.
Don't forget Sony Michel now there.
Sony Michel is there, and maybe this is the move that will revitalize him. He had some promising moments, especially his rookie season for the Patriots, but I feel like he wasn't able to establish himself. Maybe that's due to the committee situation we have here, but I'm excited to see him compete against Darrell Henderson. I think it's kind of up for grabs who wins there in that specific run game. In terms of wild card, this will be my upset. I will say that the Lions have a shot this year, and I'll explain why in a little bit. And I'm pretty excited about the Detroit Lions this year. I think they could squeak in at like the bottom of that.
I think you might be more excited about the Lions than actual Lions supporters, which is saying something.
Hey, I'll go into it. I'll go into it.
Probably more than Lions players as well. Like, remember the Lions roster? I think if they heard your optimism, they would be shocked.
Detroit Lions, we'll get into that, right? We're talking about surprising teams today, and I'll save my little spiel on the Lions for then. But in the meantime, I will say they'll squeak in. To quote Ravi, I also think the Vikings are a good candidate for that. As always, I think they make an appearance up there. For the final spot, I think it's a little. I think there's just so many teams I would like. I think would be good candidates. Like I think from the NFC West in particular, like either the Rams or the Seahawks would be fair game for that final spot. And a lot of it kind of depends on the big players we saw last season stepping up, like how well DK Metcalf plays for the Seahawks, for example, if Russell Wilson's able to continue his elite production. I'm not really sure who would take that spot between the Seahawks and the Rams, but I'm going to go with the Seahawks just because they're a very proven team in getting to the playoffs. They have experience, they have exciting young players. And I don't know if with Matt Stafford how far the Rams can go.
Okay, and I just want to bring this up because I've heard this from a lot, and I did pick the Rams, of course, to win the division, but is Matt Stafford really considered, like, I'm trying to wonder why he's considered an upgrade over Jared Goff. Like, Ravi, I don't know, like, if this kind of, like, puzzles you sometimes, but Jared Goff took the Rams to a Super Bowl. Matt Stafford has been in the league since 2009. He has never won a playoff game. So can someone explain to me where this logic of, like, I get he's not, like, a great quarterback, Goff, but is Matt Stafford really should be considered an upgrade over Jared Goff? Like, this is like a side question. I know I'm just kind of going a little bit off topic, but since we did mention this, like, do you guys really think Matt Stafford is an upgrade over Jared Goff, considering Goff's actually played in a Super Bowl and Stafford has never made, like, even won a playoff game?
Yeah, I think the main argument that of Stafford over Goff is Stafford has can throw much deeper than Jared Goff, just has a much better arm. And the hope is for the Rams is that by having that more of a long range game, they'll be able to improve their offense and be able to like push past a very competitive NFC West. But no, you bring up a great point. Like Stafford does not have much playoff success at all. Jared Goff is very successful in the playoffs. He even, like, I believe he won the playoffs last season. He broke his thumb and he still did, like, pass well enough to win the playoff game. So he is a good quarterback, but I think you bring up a valid point that people are kind of like the idea that Stafford is better than Goff or significantly better than Goff is kind of people just accept it, but we don't really talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like puzzled me. Like, I get like the Rams wanted to remove Goff, but like they traded 2 first-round picks to the Detroit Lions and for Stafford and Goff. Like, Goff was like a throw-in, and I kind of just wondered about that. Like, are they just thinking that any quarterback can take them to like a Super Bowl, like the way Goff did? Because Goff was actually like, I know in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, he didn't do that well. They only scored 3 points, but before that against the Cowboys and I think the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, that was the game where the Saints had that pass interference not called on them and that hurt them. But like, I mean, against the Saints and against the Cowboys and the Saints, those two prior games, Goff had to make some kind of big plays because they went down like 10-0, 13-0 against the Saints. And then Goff kind of let it come back. He was sort of like, I think like he's sort of underrated in a way. Like, I mean, he's not a great quarterback, but I think people kind of give him a bad rep sometimes. And I don't know, like this could also like, I mean, I did pick the Rams and maybe this kind of sounds interesting because I'm trying to criticize the Rams, but this all honestly kind of reminds me of the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if you guys remember in 2017, they made it to the NFC Championship game with Case Keenum at the quarterback. And then they got Kirk Cousins, who was seemingly an upgrade over Case Keenum. They haven't made it back to the NFC Championship game in 4 seasons now. And I think it's sometimes one of those things where I think Goff might have had something that clearly Stafford doesn't have because, as I mentioned, Goff has won playoff games and Stafford hasn't. And Stafford also, just to be clear, he had Calvin Johnson, who is the greatest modern day receiver in the NFL. One of the great, he's a Hall of Famer, just got inducted. Matthew Stafford had Calvin Johnson for 7 seasons and never won a playoff game. Let's just let that sink in as well. So I'm going to pick the Rams. So maybe this does sound a little hypocritical. And now I'm trying to talk myself out of the Rams as a playoff pick. So, which is kind of rare, but I'll stick with them for now. But I think people need to also realize that Stafford isn't that good. I don't know.
It's interesting. It's interesting, right? Because if we look at the Rams of the last season, you know, what were their problems? Their problems that really kept them from reaching the height they wanted was their offense, because their defense, you know, they have Aaron Donald, who's considered by some to be the best player in the NFL, and the status quo, which is pretty incredible when you think that he's a defensive player and people are saying that. They have one of the, like, by far one of the league's best defensive talents. And one issue that did ail them, you know, and this is actually what happened in the recent New York Times article about Matt Stafford, was their ability to have these really downfield long yardage passes. And that's actually something that Matt Stafford is capable of doing. And in terms of getting to the playoffs, you know, I think it has been a pretty ill-kept secret that the Detroit Lions are one of the most mismanaged teams from top down in the NFL. And in fact, since they parted ways with Matt Patricia in this offseason, they've actually put a lot of effort into having a new defensive coach, Aaron Glenn. They've had a lot of restructuring going on in the background. But a lot of that mismanagement has come for several years now. And I think that is a factor, right? When you have generational talents like Calvin Johnson, I mean, at LA, you know, he's going to have some pretty good receivers, obviously not at Megatron's levels. But again, he's entering a system, which in my opinion is a much more organized, structured system than he was playing at Detroit.
Yeah, that's a valid point too. No, I mean, I think like obviously I think the Rams organization has run a lot better than the Lions organization, but I think it's just also worth noting that maybe like we need to sort of, I don't know, I'm starting to think a little bit more about this, but you know, I'll stick with the Rams for now. I won't back off on the take. I think Stafford is solid. I just don't think he's an elite quarterback, if that makes sense. Like I don't think anyone ever says he was, but sometimes I got the impression that, I mean, clearly the Rams valued him higher than Goff. So I think it's kind of an interesting move on their part, and we'll see. So anyways, yeah, that's just sort of a segue. I just heard the Stafford Goff. I just wanted to bring this up. Anyways, this is the perfect channel to talk about that. So, okay, so let's go on to question 2 now. We have other questions to address. So number 2, which rookie quarterback taken in the first round? So again, there's just 5 of them in the first round. Trevor Lawrence, who went to the Jaguars, Zach Wilson to the New York Jets, Trey Lance to the San Francisco 49ers, Justin Fields to the Chicago Bears, and Mac Jones to the Patriots. Those 5 quarterbacks, which rookie quarterback of those 5 is going to have the best season in 2021? Ravi, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Trey Lance with the 49ers. I think that he, out of all of the quarterbacks into the first round, with maybe the exception of the Patriots, he is going in to one of the best systems. best systems any of the rookie QBs are going into. Like, I think that overall, players like Trevor Lawrence will be better quarterbacks long term, but he's going to a team that went 1-15 last season. That's just not going to be a very easy place to start. And I'd be surprised if they do too well this season, even with the upgrade in at QB. For Trey Lance, he's shown like he's done very well in the preseason. He has the other benefit we were just talking about, the importance of deep passing. Trey Lance has a great arm, and I think he'll be a great addition to the 49ers offense of adding that other element of the long ball in addition to their very good run game. And the only concern that I would have with Trey Lance, which is worth mentioning, is his mechanics. I know that they one of the big things they focused on over the offseason was working on his throwing mechanics. They spent a lot of time on that. And if he doesn't perform as well as he does, I would guess is that even though he works on it so hard, it's still really hard in your first game to remember all your training when, this is such a big moment for you. And it's very easy to fall back on bad habits. So overall, though, I think Trey's up to it. The coaching staff was very supportive of him, and he'll be the best QB this season in the first round.
Okay. Yeah, those are good points. Yeah, I mean, I think Trey Lance, like, he's looked pretty good in preseason. Like, that 80-yard touchdown pass he threw against the Kansas City Chiefs in the preseason, that was a terrific throw. So, no, I think, yeah, he's going to be a terrific player. I think he's going to be a very good player. And I'll get into my, like, sort of, not really concerns, but anyways, I'll let Anirban go, then I'll talk about my pick. So, Anirban?
Yeah, so I was actually a little torn between this because, we've been really blessed with some excellent prospects this year, just like 5 or 6 at least, like really talented rookies. And, I wanted to say Trevor Lawrence, because, why not? I mean, he's a mobile quarterback. The top 4 rookie prospects, I'd say, including Trey Lance and Justin Fields and Zach Wilson and Trevor, they're all very mobile quarterbacks who have the ability to run outside the pocket, which is really a modern phenomenon. But I'm concerned, I'm concerned that he's joining the Jaguars, who at the end of the day, like having an upgrade on offense this season with the additions of, for example, Marvin Jones, right? That's going to solve some problems, but I don't know if that's enough of a rebuild for where they want to go. And also keep in mind that they traded Gardner Minshew to the Eagles, actually, which was pretty unexpected because now it's really all on Trevor Lawrence. And that's a lot of responsibility to place on a rookie dealing with a team that just went 1-15, So what's he going to be like if he doesn't have that competition? Or maybe, you can say all you want by Gardner Minshew, but he's been in the league for a bit. He's seen how it works. He's been on a team that's been 1-15. There's a certain experience and maturity that you have to get from that. And that might be a little difficult for him. So I really want to say that Trevor Lawrence is going to be exciting, but I really think Mac Jones is going to be coming out of the gates really strong here. And I think he's going to play a really pivotal role in New England, making the wild card and eventually ascending into the playoffs later. Because I think Mac Jones has single-handedly made Cam Newton pack his bags from New England. And I say that with a lot of respect for Cam Newton, but Bill Belichick is not the type of person who makes those kinds of decisions without a lot of information, a lot of confidence in that player. We've seen historically that's the case. So I think that's a huge sign. Mac Jones has also been the best rookie quarterback in preseason, but we all know that comes with a lot of caveats. But based on what we've seen, he looks really excellent, particularly his ability to have flexible decision making. One of Cam Newton's biggest weaknesses was that, for the Patriots at least, was that he couldn't really adjust the offensive plays in the spur of the moment if the defense was lined up in a certain way. And that really restricted our ability to play certain kinds of more dynamic offensive passing plays. And Mac Jones excels at that. He has years of maturity. He's doing that kind of flexible thing like a veteran, and he has a lot of those qualities that make him really strong. I'm really excited to see how he plays, especially with a really talented receiving corps. And also, in my opinion, what will emerge as one of the best defenses in this league now that we've really had a lot of players come back this season, as well as the additions of players like Trent Brown. Overall, I think Mac Jones is in the best situation to succeed. And like Ravi said, I want to say Trevor Lawrence, but really in the Jacksonville situation. Not necessarily his own fault. I just don't know how well he's going to excel in his first year at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think, and I'll just say my pick. So basically, I'm going to go with Mac Jones as well. And really, like of the five, like Mac Jones, Justin, of the five taking the first round, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance are all entering systems that are pretty good. Like the 49ers had a very good offense. Like obviously 2020, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. And in 2019, it was a capable offense enough to get them to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, of the three, basically, I mean, I sort of was thinking about Trey Lance, Ravi, and I do think, like, I think your points make sense. But my concern with Lance, like, obviously, aside from, like, the mechanics side, which he still needs to work on, I just don't know if he's going to see the field this season. That's my biggest concern with Trey Lance. I mean, this could all be moot if Jimmy Garoppolo just gets released next week and Trey Lance is named the starter. But I have a feeling that Kyle Shanahan is going to start the season with Jimmy Garoppolo. And just because of that, I just don't think Lance is going to have as many games to like shine and show his talent as Mac Jones will, because because of the five, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence, those three we know are going to be starting week one. Fields and Lance, we actually don't know yet. So and the thing with Lance is the 49ers, if they return to the 2019 form, where they got to the Super Bowl, and Jimmy Garoppolo can at least show that he's an effective game manager, I just don't know if they're going to play Lance this season. They might actually preserve him for 2022 and then let Jimmy Garoppolo go in free agency or get released, and then they go with Lance. So that's actually the reason I would hesitate against picking Lance this season, not because he isn't a talented player, just because I don't know if the 49ers are going to go with him at all this season, aside from maybe being like the backup. So that's the thing. Like, I mean, Justin Fields as well. Like, I mean, I think that situation is a little bit different because Andy Dalton, we know his ceiling. We know who Andy Dalton is. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields comes in like week 6, week 7, and he has Allen Robinson, Jimmy Graham, and David Montgomery in the backfield. So that's a pretty good team. So I think that's a viable candidate. And I also agree on Lawrence, and I think Lawrence might be good eventually, but I mean, right now he just has Laviska Shenault Jr., James Robinson, DJ Chark, pretty decent offensive playmakers, pretty good, I'd say, like probably comparable to some of the other teams like we were mentioning. Maybe the Patriots, like these guys can compare, but the big thing is the Patriots have a very good offensive line. The Jaguars' offensive line is very shaky. Steve Palazzolo of Pro Football Focus ranked it as the 23rd offensive line in the league. So that's kind of going to be a tough situation for Lawrence, where it's going to be different. So that's why I'm going against Lance, Ravi. Not because I have anything against him. I just don't know if he's going to be playing the season. I don't know. Could you see a situation where Kyle Shanahan just like goes the whole season with Jimmy G, like 2019?
I think that is valid what you're saying. I think my personal prediction is that come week, 4 or 5, like or potentially even sooner, Lance will be the starting QB. They spent 3 first-round picks and a 3rd-round selection to get him, and you just don't spend that kind of capital if you're not planning on playing Trey Lance at some point this season. So I'd be really surprised. Last season didn't work out. They benched Jimmy G multiple times. I think they've really shown
that they don't have it. Right? Wasn't he also?
He was injured, and then he was also pulled a couple of games when he just was not performing. Potentially
Nick Mullins instead. Nick Mullins.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I feel like Kyle Shanahan does not have a ton of confidence in Jimmy G, at least to play for the whole season. So I think we will see Trey Lance, and I think he will perform in the games we do see him. So hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, if Lance does come in, then it's going to be like he's going to have a lot of. He has George Kittle, who's one of the best tight ends in the league. Then you have Brandon Ayuk. You got a pretty good running game. So yeah, no, I mean, if Trey Lance does have enough offensive firepower around him to really have a good season, if he does start, I think all of us are basically saying the same thing. It's when he starts rather than like it's about that. So yeah, I mean, I just want to say about Mac Jones, like he has a seasoned veteran play caller in Josh McDaniels, who of course worked with Tom Brady. Obviously, we know Brady is just great. He's a GOAT, so he didn't need McDaniels. He won without McDaniels last season. But I mean, you have a guy like McDaniels, sort of, I think is going to be someone who can really help Mac Jones develop overall. So, and I think as Anirban mentioned, all the reasons like the Patriots offensive line is very good. You just have championship level coaching, and there are just a lot of veterans from that 2018 team that won the Super Bowl who are just still there. So he just has a lot of championship kind of like he has not experience, but he has a lot of players and coaches with championship backgrounds who he's going to be learning from. So I think that's going to help him a ton for a rookie quarterback. So in the first round. So I think for all those reasons, I think I'm going with Mac Jones. But yeah, I mean, Trey Lance, I think can totally be awesome this season. And same with Justin Fields. Like I think his situation when he does become the starter, when Andy Dalton is benched, or Nick Foles. I don't know. I think Dalton is supposed to be the starter. Is Nick Foles like even in the mix anymore? Because I know he's still on the Bears, but is he like still planning to like is he still like in the mix at this point, or are they just going to release him?
I really don't think he's figuring in the Bears' plans for this season. And honestly, like there are more than a couple of teams that only have one QB really in the mix. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see him kind of getting released and then being picked up as a backup somewhere else, maybe like Jacksonville or even New England.
Goes back to Jacksonville. Imagine if he goes back to Philly again. Yes, success.
Philly's now a Gardner Minshew backup, so I guess that's probably out. But yeah, point taken. You could there's always a market, right, for backup QBs who, theoretically the idea is that you don't want them to play for you, but if someone has to play, then someone has to play.
Well, I mean, what if he goes to the Colts, right? Reunited with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, he might take his job and then win the Super Bowl. Maybe that's another reason to root for the Colts. We've seen this combination before.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's our take there. And okay, so let's go with question 3 now. Let's talk about the Patriots a little bit more. How do the Patriots do with Mac Jones now officially named the starter and playing week 1? And also I just added, how do you think he's going to play against the Buccaneers in week 4, the Super Bowl champions, and Tom Brady, of course, coming back to town? Ravi, what do you think? So, I mean, we know that you didn't pick New England to make the playoffs. So I'm just like, what are your predictions for the Patriots this season and Mac?
Yeah, so I just want to point out there are a lot of commonalities in between our opinions. I think I do think Mac Jones is a good quarterback. I think he really did he won that position from Cam Newton fair and square. That was a big shock, but that credit to him. He performed well enough, and the organization showed that they had faith in him. I think regardless, though, we are going to see some growing pains. It's a big transition between college football and the NFL, and I think that will be something that we're going to have to contend with in the first couple of weeks, and in an already very competitive division with the Bills and the Dolphins. I think that will be potentially a pretty important factor when it comes down to whether they get a good enough record to make the playoffs. Overall, though, I think he will do well. The biggest point on why I think he'll do well is that he fits very well in the Patriots system that we had under Tom Brady. One of the biggest concerns that people have about him is over his athleticism, but obviously, Bill Belichick has worked with a not very mobile QB for a very long time to a lot of success. His arm's great, and I think putting that confidence in him will really buoy up the team overall. But so not a Mac Jones hater at all, but I do think it's going to take some time. For everything to kind of gel together now that he's the head of the team.
Got it. Yeah, no, I totally understand. I think obviously, growing pains, that's going to be something we will have to get adjusted to. But I mean, so what are your predictions for the Patriots this season, record wise? And
record wise, I wouldn't be surprised if we do very similarly to the previous season. So around 8-8, or I guess now we have 17 games. Yeah.
9.
So 9-8, or around 500 or slightly above 500. But overall, I don't think that'll be good enough to best the Dolphins in terms of the wild card. Also, I think overall you see very few divisions sending 3 teams to the playoffs. And it's just really hard with the amount of times they play each other. And I personally think that the Dolphins, just with the moves they've made this offseason, and they didn't have the better record last year, will lead to them getting the wild card spot.
Okay, and I guess based on that, like you're predicting week 4, I guess the Buccaneers predicting a loss then.
I am most likely predicting a loss. I think if it isn't one, it's just because Bill Belichick has worked with Tom Brady so much, and he knows a little bit about how he thinks. But overall, the Bucs, I mean, they're stacked. They really showed it. Their defense is awesome. They have so many offensive weapons, and Brady can throw hasn't aged a bit. So I think the Bucs are going to be pretty unstoppable, especially when we mentioned earlier, the NFC South is pretty weak this year now that the Saints have kind of lost Drew Brees, and Michael Thomas is injured again. So
yeah, no, I agree. No, that's fair. I'll go next. So basically, I do think the Patriots can contend for a playoff spot. So you said 8-9, 9-8, Ravi. So I think that's reasonable. I mean, I would be pretty disappointed if that happens, but I mean that is totally an acceptable prediction, something I could definitely see happening. But I think that this team is still good enough. If you look at their schedule, their first 8 or 9 games, it's not aside from Tampa, of course, they really could start the season 7-2, 8-1 if they basically win the games they should be winning. Last season they didn't, obviously, but I think with Mac Jones and I think with a very good defense, a top 5 defense, I think this team is a playoff team. They couldn't be a playoff team. So I'm going to go with 11-6. Back in May, actually, Ujan, me, and another guest, Joe Salisbury, we basically predicted the Patriots' schedule week by week. So I went with 11-6, and so I think they're going to be a playoff team, the number 5 seed. And I do predict a loss to the Buccaneers in week 4, but that's not going to derail Mac Jones's growth, I don't think. I mean, he's going up against the best ever. So, I mean, losing to the best ever, I don't think should be held against anyone. So, okay, yeah, that's my pick. Anirban, what are you expecting?
I'm predicting 11 or 6 or better. In fact, mine was actually 13-4.
Oh,
and let me explain this, right? I think people.
Oh my God, what's in the water, dude?
Hey, listen. I think we were watching 2 different teams last season. I'll say that. The team I saw, right? The team I saw had a lack of dynamic talent in key situations that is thoroughly underestimated. Okay, to say that we were rush heavy last season is an understatement. We had the 4th most rushing yards in the NFL, and we were in the bottom half when it came to actually passing. Cam Newton was 24th in passing, and if you want to know who he was besting in that included the likes of Sam Darnold, Gardner Minshew, Carson Wentz. All right, I really would be pretty shocked if Mac Jones can actually match that kind of floor, right? Because I think already in preseason, he said he packed Cam Newton's backs for him essentially. Okay, and I do really expect, and it's not just me. A lot of his players, veteran receivers like Kendrick Bourne, spoken very highly of what he brings, right? So I think first of all, we're going to have a dramatically better situation in passing. But also, we're going to have a dramatically better defense. We're actually projected to have one of the best defenses in the league this year. Because think about the players that we're getting back. We're getting back players like Kyle Van Noy, getting players like Dante Hightower available for us. Our pass rush and run defense got absolutely decimated last season against opposition, right? We saw that against the Bills, for example, in the regular season. It was way too easy to switch up on us as soon as we got successful. And now that we have a full defense back, we're going to see a big difference. We also see Trent Brown back on the offensive line after a stint at the Raiders. He's already been considered a very dynamic leader actually on our offensive line. So we're going to see that as really big too.
Just on the offensive line, they also retained David Andrews, who I think is the most underrated center in the NFL. His value to the team is immense. So they got Andrews back, who's the captain for the offensive line.
Exactly, and he's back. Trent Brown is back, who's known for his strength, his quickness, his skill with his hands. We've also seen a new addition from the Dolphins. I believe is Davin Gotcha, and I apologize for mispronouncing. Davin Gotcha, who was actually considered a very successful run defender for the Dolphins. So he's going to be joining us along with other defenders we've returned. So we have to understand that last season was really, in my opinion, it was kind of an outlier, right? We had a quarterback who unfortunately got COVID and after that really was not able to regain a lot of his ability to kind of throw the ball and really depended on the rush. And you look at the players that we have joining us in terms of Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers, in the games that he played, was ranked the 22nd wide receiver, 22nd ranked wide receiver in the NFL for the games he played last season. He had a 73% completion rate. When he was targeted, he got the ball 73% of the time. That's better than DeAndre Hopkins did. He got 71%, right? And I'm not saying that to say he's better than DeAndre. I'm just saying that he was a very good talent who's also flown completely under the radar for us. And I think we'll have a great season.
Robbie, how dare you underestimate Jacoby Myers?
All right, Jacoby Myers. I think people underestimate that. And also Jonnu Smith edition, right? This is a player we got 4 years for $50 million. Okay. You don't give that kind of money for someone that we're just going to come here and block for us. Jonnu Smith is a red zone threat. He's known as one of the best tight ends, top 10 tight ends in getting runs after catching the ball, in yards after catching. We have Hunter Henry, whose injuries have made him rather inconsistent, but is still commonly targeted in the Chargers. He was a common red zone target. That's why he got a ton of touchdowns like that. Nelson Aguilar, also a player who's very boom and bust, but he's very speedy, can get downfield. And I've been the first person to say, I've been saying this for many years now, that Brandon Cooks leaving left a huge gap in us in our ability to get deep, long passes. Because Jacoby Myers isn't that player. He got no catches that were 40 plus yards last season. He got plenty in the 20-yard range, but we need a player who can make those deep threats. That's something we lost with Brandon Cooks years ago, and I don't think we ever replaced. But I think Nelson Aguilar can help us with that. And overall, I think with all of these skills, we have a better defense. We have a better QB. We have better receivers for said QB. We have exciting running backs, including Ramondre Stevenson, who I'm actually rating pretty highly as a rookie for us this year. I think he's going to be like LeGarrette Blount for us. And we have a revitalized offensive line. I don't see any reason why we're not going to improve by a few games. And I think we're going to pit the Dolphins. I really do. Because the Dolphins have gotten better with Jalen Waddle, but they're also taking a gamble with Tua this year. They released Ryan Fitzpatrick. They're taking a gamble on Tua. And while I think Tua is a fine player, I do enjoy watching him play. He's had 1,800 yards in 9 games last season. I think with Jalen Waddle, they've improved a little bit, but I think we're going to improve a lot. So I would really be expecting us to take second in the AFC East.
Wow. So Robbie has them at 8-9 wins, and you have them as like a 13-win team. That is a huge. Robbie, did you want to talk at all about or respond at all?
I don't know. I'm just saying Anirban's going to get like his eyes checked or his ears checked or just saying something's wrong, dude. Something's not there. I think the Patriots are good. I think you do make some good points, but a 13-win team, how do you even have them as potentially a 13-win team and the Bucks beating them? Like, I don't know. I don't even understand like your math.
Look here, right? Sure, we can lose to the Buccaneers. We can lose to the Buccaneers, right? Maybe they have one of the literally the same defense as last year. They have Jason Pierre-Paul, who everyone's rated very highly. They had, I believe, at least 5 defensive players in the NFL top 100 players list. I could be wrong on the exact number, but the point is their defense is stacked, especially their pass rushing defense. They have one of the best pass rushing defenses in the league. It's going to be very difficult for Mac Jones. But guess what? You don't have to beat the Buccaneers to go 13-4, right? And honestly, we're talking about the Bills, right? The Bills have gotten stronger this offseason, right? They got Emmanuel Sanders instead, and in the process lost John Brown. And I think, I am saying this. I don't know if we're going to be able to top the Bills. I don't know, because the Bills were 13-3 last season. But here's the thing. It's diminishing returns as you try to get higher and higher up that win column, right? Sure, going from 7-9 in the old 16-game format to like 10-6, that's doable. But as you get higher and higher, in my opinion, go from 13-3 to 14-2, that's going to be even harder. 14-2 to 15-1, even harder, right? So the Bills reached 13-3. how much better are they going to get than Emmanuel Sanders? I think Emmanuel Sanders is great, but I don't fully know. I don't know how much more their passing game really needed last season. They were one of the best, one of the strongest passing teams in the league. Josh Allen had an excellent season throwing the ball. So yes, Emmanuel Sanders is great, but do they really need that? Like, how much does that increase their ceiling? You know what I'm saying? So I think the Bills can reach 13-3. I don't know how much better they can get than that. And if the Patriots can kind of reach up to 12 and 13 game winning, why not? I want to hear you list, if you really think so. I want to hear you list more than 4 teams who are playing in the regular season who will beat us. That's what I asked you.
Oh, okay.
More than 4 teams. I'm gonna have to look. Okay, let me look at the Patriots schedule right now. I'll go find.
More than
4 teams. That's it. All that you want me to do?
Please let me know, because when we're playing the Dolphins, and I told you, I think that maybe that could be 50-50 if you want. I personally think that we've improved a lot more compared to where the Dolphins have improved.
Okay,
Jalen Waddle, I do
go.
great, but I think we can.
All right, well, let's start off Buccaneers 1. We're playing the Browns November 14th. That's another great team. Titans against the Patriots, and Bills. That's 4 right there.
All right, I really don't know about the Browns. I really don't. This is the same team that let Chad Henne get 30 yards or whatever on like 4th and like 20.
I think the Browns are one of the best off seasons. Period. They did a great job.
Yeah, the Browns are good. I mean, they have a pretty good offense now, and I think now they have some more confidence. I think the thing with the Browns that's probably worth mentioning is like the last time they entered the season with expectation was 2019, and they were a letdown that year. So I mean, the thing is they do have a different coach now, Kevin Stefanski, and obviously they had a great win against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card round. So I think the Browns are good, but I mean, I think the Patriots do have a lot of those games they can win besides Tampa. Most of those games, I think they probably likely split against Miami, split against Buffalo, and then that's like 3 losses there. I mean, 13-4 is pretty optimistic, but that's why I think like 11-6 is a little bit more of what I was thinking. But I don't know, maybe they shock everyone and go 13-4, and then Ravi has to come back on the show and admit that he had greatly underestimated Mac Jones.
Yeah, I guess so. And you're about to really relish in that, I'm sure.
We need to see. Once we have an actual defense, and especially once we get, I'll say this again. I mean, people underestimate the impact that COVID had on us last season. Cam Newton entering before, like we all remember his game against the Seahawks, the first few games of the season. We were really big on him. We were really big on him. He had an excellent game against the Seahawks, even though we did end up losing very tightly. COVID completely changed the calculus. COVID also was a reason we lost key defensive players. Our defense got pretty shellacked last season, right? And that's not something we associate with Bill.
Oh, one thing about the defense is Stephon Gilmore is going to be out the first couple of weeks of the season, right? So the secondary is going to be
Stephon will be out, right? But we do have multiple first-team defensive players returning for us.
Well, J.C. Jackson is pretty good, but I mean, on the other side, without Gilmore, is it going to be Jalen Mills? Because he looked kind of shaky in the preseason. So I'm a little bit worried about the secondary, but I think their pass rush should be pretty good. I mean, Matt Judon, that's another guy they added in the offseason who I think is really good. So
I'm excited about him. I think Devon is also. I think that also plugged a hole for us. And when we're playing teams like, and even if Stephon Gilmore is back a little later, right? Teams like the Titans that we're playing later, teams like the Bills that we're going to be playing later in like late November, December. I think Stephon will be back by then. Having an elite cornerback like that to face off against Julio Jones or Cole Beasley or Stephon Diggs, that makes a difference. That's not something that we had when we lost pretty badly to the Bills last season.
Yeah, also that second game against the Bills, I'm just going to say that was also like, at that point, the Patriots had just been eliminated from the playoffs, so they really had nothing to play for, and the Bills were still looking for the 2 seed. So the Bills had everything to play off to play for. The Patriots had nothing to play for. So I'm not actually worried about that Monday night game last year where they got crushed, because at that point the Patriots were just focused on next season. So I'm not actually worried about that game, and how I think they'll be better, and I think they will split against the Bills this season. But anyways, I mean, we are sort of like, I just want to make sure we get the other questions in. So yeah, we're actually not even halfway. So, okay, number 4, just question, are you content with the Patriots offense following the offseason signings of wide receivers Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar and tight ends Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry? So let's just hear this quickly. I mean, I think we've already kind of touched upon it. So Ravi, do you like the offseason they did, or do you wish they did a little bit more, or what?
I'm a little bit confused since I guess maybe going, re-signing Cam Newton and spending a lot of money gave the message that we're going to contend now. Now that he's kind of been let go, it seems like maybe we could have waited on spending all that money and been a little bit more judicious. We gave away over $150 million in guaranteed money. And I think not all of those contracts will age very well. So I think I regret some, like, I think we could have been a little bit more judicious about our money. But besides that, we're going to feel the competitive team this year, and that's going to be exciting at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. So, like, I mean, I do sort of wish they had like a true number 1 wide receiver like Julio Jones. Like we had talked about him before, and I think he's going to have a big season with the Tennessee Titans. So I do kind of wish they had been a little bit more aggressive with Julio Jones, maybe spent that money on him rather than Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. But I think they did the next best thing, which was add some solid playmakers. And I think Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, if both are healthy, like, and Henry does have health concerns, so just like every year he gets injured, I think that's like one of the best tight end duos in the league in terms of talent wise. So I do think, like, I guess they did enough. I think they'll also just kind of evaluate and see how Mac Jones does. Like, I think if he's able to utilize all these guys, and this is a good enough offense, I think, for them to make the playoffs. So I guess I am okay with it. I think I'd like to see more like next offseason, but I think that's just going to kind of hinge on how Mac Jones does this season. So that's kind of my take on that. Anirban, what do you think?
I'm pretty content. I think, like you, I do wish that we'd made a push for Julio Jones. I remember we were actually discussing this a few months ago. But again, I'm saying, and I've been a big Jacoby Myers fan since last season, and I think, I just rattle off some stats on why I think he can be really effective for us. And I'm saying this right now: Jacoby Myers and Jonnu Smith are going to be our 2 players with most pass volume. Jonnu Smith, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily like a correlating metric, but on fantasy football, Jonnu Smith is considered with tight end 1 upside, right? Top 10 tight ends, and he's really big. He's versatile. He has, like I mentioned, he has one of the best ratings for yards after catch, which is like really important for tight ends in particular, and especially for the way we like to use tight ends, right? We've seen that with who did we have last season at tight end? We had Devin Asiasi, whose primary role, if I remember correctly, was really blocking. He caught maybe 10 yards, or I don't know what he caught. But now we have 2 pretty good tight ends. Jonnu Smith is, in my opinion, going to be the leader there. Again, he has big money behind him, 4 years, $50 million. Like Ravi pointed out, that's a lot of money. That's a big investment. That's a big message. And I do think that we do begin to plug some holes. I also did like our drafting. I think Ramondre Stevenson is a good addition to our back, especially I think we'd seen how Sony Michel had played for us, and I think it was time for us to part ways with him. We wish him the best of luck. I hope he does really well in the Rams. But I think Ramondre Stevenson can also offer us something. I think that's more of a late flyer. It might work, it might not work, but I'm interested in seeing what he offers us. In the meantime, we have Damian Harris, who played really well last season. We still have James White, who's kind of being consistent mainstay and consistent clutch factor for us. So I think we're taking steps in the right direction. I really do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think they are. Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, Robbie, I think obviously that's splurge by Bill Belichick was something to behold, right? Like, usually the Patriots are always good with like money, and this year, like, they just splurged. Like, it was amazing. Like, it was like a holiday shopping sale by Bill Belichick, right? Very unusual and different from previous years. But I think the thing, like, what's happened is, like, without Brady, like, Belichick needs to be different now. Like, before, Brady kind of covered up so much of his holes because he was such an excellent quarterback. So now, like, I think we're going to see Bill Belichick kind of in a different light. And the, like, sense, like, now that Tom Brady's no longer there, he has to kind of think differently. So that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm actually very intrigued by how the Pats do this season. All right, let's just get to the other question. So, all right, so which team will be the biggest surprise of the 2021 season? I'll just start with this one. I already kind of alluded to this with my playoff picks, but I have the Tennessee Titans as the biggest surprise just because I think they're going to be the 1 seed. It's going to be kind of like the 2008 season. I don't know if you guys remember that too well, but that year they were actually the 1 seed in the AFC. They started off 10-0 and they finished 13-3 as the 1 seed. And they did lose to the Baltimore Ravens that season in the divisional round. But I think this Titans team with Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, AJ Brown, and Ryan Tannehill, who I am kind of skeptical of, so I don't think the Titans are going to I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, and we'll get to the Super Bowl later of who we think will win. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I do think they are going to be good enough to get the 1 seed. I think they're going to have a very, very good season. So that's my biggest surprise of the 2021 season.
So I have a question for you, Amartya. To what extent do you think Julio Jones arriving at the Titans will shift their calculus from a run in terms of their prioritization of the run versus passing game? Because I think in the last season's playoffs, we really saw that once Derrick Henry was really stuffed in the running game, outside of AJ Brown, they just didn't really have a lot of opportunities. So if you cover AJ Brown, Tannehill really struggled.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be kind of a thing, right? Because if Henry is kind of stuffed, you can kind of just focus on limiting AJ Brown. I don't even know the rest of the Titans offense. You have a guy like Julio Jones, who I think he was I think it was probably I think a situation in Atlanta, with Calvin Ridley emerging, and he also was injured a bit. But I think Julio Jones is hungry for an opportunity. He's looking to try to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl this time. Obviously we know what happened the one time he wasn't a Super Bowl, but I think having him there, having a guy who can literally you could just toss the ball up there. And I still think Julio Jones is an elite receiver if he's healthy. So I think having him and AJ Brown opposite ends, it's going to give Derrick Henry. Actually, it's going to help Derrick Henry even more now because now the passing game is a legitimate threat. So with Henry, I think when it was just Henry and AJ Brown, it almost seemed like Henry was he was a 2,000-yard rusher, right? But I don't think that's going to be something that the Titans want. And I think if you can basically put more into the passing game, which they did with Julio Jones and AJ Brown, you can allow Henry to be more effective and more rested. Because I think last season he just got gassed for that wild card round against the Ravens, right? He put so much energy in getting them to that 11-win season that by the time of the playoffs he was just exhausted. And I can't blame him. When you're rushed for 2,000 yards and you are essentially the bell cow for that offense, that's what's going to happen. So I think now, with more offensive options, and Tannehill looks like he has improved a lot, 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions last season. Those are very good numbers. Even in today's pass-heavy NFL, those are terrific numbers. So I think having Julio Jones is going to help the Titans a ton. And that's why I picked them as the 1 seed. I think their offense is going to be among the best in the league. Kind of strange for us to say that, but yeah. So I think having Julio Jones to answer your question is going to help them immensely. It's going to open up more opportunities for Derrick Henry, and AJ Brown is going to have a ton of opportunities. It's kind of like what Antonio Brown did for Juju Smith-Schuster the first couple seasons. Brown drew so much double coverage that Smith-Schuster had a big season. I think we're going to see that a ton now because Julio Jones is going to command a ton of attention from the opposing offense. Sorry, defense. I meant the opposing secondary. So yeah, I think the Titans are going to go. Are going to be the 1 seed. That's my bold prediction. So we'll see if that completely falls on its face, or maybe. So yeah, that's my kind of one where I really digress from you guys because you guys have the Colts. But anyways, Ravi, what's your biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise? Not really sure what's a surprise, but I have the Cardinals making a fairly deep playoff run, even though they do not win the division. I think Kyler Murray will take a pretty big step forward. And overall, the offense, especially towards the end of the season, offense, defense starts looking really good. So I think the Cardinals will be really put the league on notice that they're going to be one of the big contenders going forward.
Yeah, they got J.J. Watt as well. So no, I agree. Arizona's an intriguing option. And Anirban, what about you? Who's the biggest surprise?
I alluded to some earlier, and I think, Motown is going to be going vroom vroom this season. I really do. And
Javi, do you have any thoughts on that?
Let me talk a little about this, right? Because I think like I said, we've seen a framework shift at Detroit in this offseason, right? We have a new defensive coach in Aaron Glenn. We have a change in kind of ruthlessness of the team, especially I believe in kind of holding on to players who maybe weren't up for the cut of the situation. And we see them actually moving on from players like Rashad Perriman, for example. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm really excited about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a rookie who is a brother, and his older brother,
Equinemius.
Equinemius St. Brown, who's currently the wide receiver 2 behind Devontae Adams at Green Bay, who was also a rookie last year, an excellent player. You know, Amon-Ra St. Brown, coming from that same family, he's played very well in college. He's big, he's quick, he's had an excellent preseason. He's expected to be at least this wide receiver 2, if not at some point overtaking Tyrell Williams in this season. He's a really exciting player, and I'm going to be really excited to watch him play as a wide receiver. I think the Detroit Lions, you know, we've been talking about Jared Goff, and I've heard you two actually telling me earlier in this podcast about how much you rate him and how he is in some cases maybe overlooked by some people for his passing abilities. And we look at the players he has in Detroit. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyrell Williams. I think TJ Hawkinson is one of the more underrated tight ends in the league. You know, he got tons of volume last season, and he's been having some really good chemistry with Jared Goff in the preseason, which I think is going to help them a lot. Keep in mind that they've kind of also like changed out their defense, if that makes sense. Like they've kind of they have a pretty deep, they're considered to have a very deep like defensive line position for this coming season. And yeah, overall, I think the change in messaging from top down, the addition of kind of young talent there. You know, keep in mind, we also have players like DeAndre Swift on the Detroit Lions who are expected actually, who are potential breakout stars for this season too, despite maybe not achieving the same heights last year. Overall, you know, are they going to win the Super Bowl? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they're going to be a surprise because most people just expect them, you know, it's a Detroit. You know, they're not going to be past 500. They're going to be, you know, kind of down there. I'm saying no, you know, I'm saying this season we could see something special on the way.
On Anirban, I really don't agree with you, dude. I think on a number of points, you know, I think you really gotta see a doctor at this rate. Like on your culture point, I think it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot more time than what you're saying than just firing and changing a couple positions to create a culture change. I think
Also,
that happens over the course
I just want to say that Dan Campbell, the Lions coach, seems like a complete knucklehead. I don't know if you've ever listened to like his press conferences, but like this guy like sounds like he just like sort of like his way of like talking is like he almost sounds like a wrestler. Like he tries to hype up everything. Like when we go down, we're gonna bite out a kneecap. Like that's what he actually said in his opening press conference. Like when he put us down, we're gonna get up and take a kneecap. And when he pushes us down again, we'll take another kneecap. I might be paraphrasing entirely what he was saying, but basically, yeah, he seems like a very like interesting motivator. Almost sounds like a WWE promoter sometimes. Like I don't know.
Hey, you know, they've been playing well.
It's just not what you need. And then in terms of actual positions, I really think that the loss of Galladay and Marvin Jones Jr. will impact them more than you've stated. So overall, I personally don't think there's that much reason to be optimistic about the Lions season. You disagree. I'm pretty confident in betting they won't make the playoffs, but
that's part of the surprise, right? I'm just saying they're going to be a surprise. You know, yeah, they lost Kenny Galladay. I had Marvin Jones. I rate Marvin Jones a lot, and I think the Jaguars will be better with him. But you know, at the end of the day, again, let's think about what we're saying. Most people would probably expect the Lions to be at or maybe worse than their record last season. I'm saying they're going to be a little better.
I think the real surprise is Anirban's judgment of football team. So,
hey, you know, you're saying we're going to see how it goes. I think
we'll see how it goes.
I think they're more interesting, surprising pick than the Cardinals. I really do. I mean, Cardinals have one of the most fun QBs to watch, Kyler Murray. One of my favorite receivers, DeAndre Hopkins. You know, they're gonna be a fun team to watch next year.
Cool. I'm glad you agree with me.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, I mean, the Lions, I guess, yeah, I mean, It was kind of funny. I think Jared Goff had said like we're gonna like. I know people are counting us out, but we were gonna like have a good season. I mean, it is like kind of. I am interested to see how they do the season with Goff, because if Goff can get that team to like 8-8 or something, then that's actually a tremendous indictment on Goff. Like actually, if he's able to do that, and that's the thing. Like I think the Lions are very depleted on offense right now. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like he's unproven. He's a rookie at the end of the day. So we don't know. But I mean, the Lions maybe. I have like too many questions about their defense and their head coach. I think the head coach is a complete knucklehead. So that's why I don't really see that team going like more than like 5-12 or something like that. But like I don't know. I mean, look, if the Lions make a surprising push to the playoffs, then Robbie and I will have to come back on and give you props for predicting this one.
Changing coaches is one thing, getting players is another thing. They've and again, just like the Patriots, coming back from it. I'm not saying that they're the same team. I'm just saying Patriots had a really bad defense last season. They're expected to have one of the stronger ones this year. That makes a big difference. The Lions, according to their own fans, quote, had a putrid defense last season. And their new coaches coming in have actually made some free agent signings, including Penei Sewell. Well, that's on the offensive line, but they've actually
he's good. He's the draft pick, actually.
Yeah,
I think the Bengals are going to regret passing on him.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in him. So these are smart picks. These are picks that you make with the vision in mind. And that's all I'm saying, that yes, they've lost some players, but I think if you look at the mindset in the camp and the morale and like the idea of trajectory, maybe they're a little weaker on receivers on paper. They have Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, who are considered to be, and Jamal Williams who had a really good preseason campaign, if I'm being honest. Let's see what happens. If anything,
Anirban, you should go to Detroit, spend a week there, and tell me if you're happy and motivated, and then come back. Yeah.
If I have a chance to go to Lions,
I'm starting to think he's like going to start a Lions podcast at this point.
you asked me for surprises. I gave you my surprise.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. No, this could be an interesting discussion. I guess I'm gonna like kind of have an eye out on the Lions. I think Ravi, every week the Lions lose, Ravi's just gonna like celebrate even more, right? Am I getting the impression now of what's gonna happen?
I might actually watch the Lions game, but that's really his end game. So
wow, okay. Yeah, there you go. He got Ravi to watch the Detroit Lions. That is a pretty difficult task for anyone. Even Lions fans have a tough time watching that team. So anyways, okay, so next question. How much of a wrench will COVID-19 throw into the 2021 NFL season? So, Ravi, like, what do you think?
I think like we're currently seeing some perhaps some drama over players not vaccinating. I think Ron Rivera displayed some frustration with players who weren't vaccinated. We're getting vaccinated enough. I think though, like just as we're seeing in the country, like a spike in people finally getting vaccinated, just with the rise of the Delta variant more, we will see that among NFL players, and hopefully it is a non-issue not too far after the start of the season. So I'm hopeful that people are starting to get vaccinated. And at the very least, if they're not, it's going to be in the press. So
yeah, I mean, Anirban, what is your take? Like, how much of a wrench will COVID-19 throw into the season?
Yeah, I'm unfortunately more pessimistic because I've been the English Soccer League, actually the EPL, kicked off a few weeks ago now, and we're already seeing what that's been like with COVID, and in a place like UK, which is of course dealing with variants, but maybe not to the extent that the US is. And we've already seen a lot of disruptions, not only in preseason, right, but also because at the end of the day, athletes are probably one of the less vaccinated segments of population. That's true in the NFL. That's true in the English Premier League. It's probably true in a lot of in the MLB and stuff. It's just that no one wants to talk about it. But unfortunately, we've seen in the NFL that there is a good proportion of big name players. We've all heard Cole Beasley being in the news for that over the last month or two. And it's an issue, right? Because just by statistics, right, we've seen that we're currently in the middle of cases rising with the Delta variant. Just by probability, it's very likely that you're going to have players, and not just players, but coaching staff, people who are around those players, who might end up being close contacts. And just because of public health guidelines, if you're unvaccinated and you're a close contact, you have to be quarantined or isolated for a certain number of days compared to if you're vaccinated. And in England, that's already disruption. So the team I follow, Arsenal, our captain, Granit Xhaka, just tested positive for COVID-19. He was unvaccinated, and he's going to have to miss, like, I don't know, 10 days or whatever. And that's a key first team player who's not going to be there. That's a big problem. So I think we're going to see that disruption just because, epidemiology is just inherent that you're going to get some players either getting COVID or going to know people who get it. And given the high proportion of kind of vaccine skepticism in the NFL among some, at least from what we're seeing in the news, I think it's very likely you're going to see a lot of disruptions to first team sheets, a lot of disruptions to training, often with very little warning, right? Because these things, you just get a test and that's that. And that's just going to have to be something because, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of have like a pessimistic outlook too, because there's still a good number of NFL players who have not yet been vaccinated. You mentioned Cole Beasley. I think Lamar Jackson has tested positive twice for COVID, once last year and once recently. So I know, but also players like Leonard Fournette, I think he was skeptical on the vaccine, but the Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons are the two teams so far that are 100% fully vaccinated. So I think it's also, it's going to be trickier, right? Because unvaccinated players are not going to be held to stricter guidelines because vaccinated players or staff who test positive and are asymptomatic can return to duty or return to play after 2 negative tests, which are 24 hours apart. But for non-vaccinated players who test positive, the 2020 protocols remain in place, meaning there has to be a 10-day isolation. So it's going to be tougher, right? And also, like I was just reading from NFL and Network's Tom Pelissero reported that the NFL sent a memo to its club stating that if a game cannot be rescheduled, this is pretty important, if a game cannot be rescheduled during the 18-week schedule due to a COVID-19 outbreak among unvaccinated players, the team with the outbreak will forfeit and be credited with a loss. So that is something to kind of worth monitoring for the season, right? Because there could be some forfeits going on and other stuff that goes on potentially. I don't know if the NFL will get to that point because I think they will do everything they can to make sure the entire schedule is played, but that is something worth monitoring as well. So I think it will throw somewhat of a wrench. Like I think we're going to see the same thing where games might have to be moved or pushed back, probably not to the extent it was last season, but I do think that it will cause some disruption. But I think the season will fully be played. The Super Bowl, everything will be played on Sunday, February 13th. So I don't think I'm worried about that, but I can totally see shifting around games based on that.
Kind of along that. If you want to see examples, first of all, look no further than New England Patriots, right? Where kind of quote confusion about policies for vaccinated versus unvaccinated led to Cam Newton missing at least a few days of being able to enter the training facility. And for athletes, availability is everything. If you're not available for whatever reason, that gives someone else an opportunity instead of you. And I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying in that case that's like literally what led to him leaving and stuff, but it's an example, right? If you're
there
a player,
are sources
playing,
like Colin Cowherd said that that mishap by Cam Newton, the misunderstanding was why Cam Newton ended up one big reason why Belichick ended
it could
up
be,
him.
It could be, and we don't, like it's ambiguous, but the point is that's an example that hits us close to home. And we're talking about Buffalo. We're talking about there's actually been a micro, like a tiny cluster of outbreaks associated with them. In fact, on August 24th or around that time, 4 Bills players, including Cole Beasley, were identified as close contacts, and then they just had to isolate for 5 days. No training, no chemistry with their players. If you want to see examples, this is happening now. Once the season starts, just imagine what impact that would have.
The only other thing that I'd like to point out is actually looked at the specific data on this while we were talking, and apparently the NFL, the player vaccination rate is much higher than I thought at 93% as of a week ago, and 99% among staff members. So I will say that that is definitely some good news, and that's higher than
That's
I think
good.
that would
That's
make it
higher
the
than
highest.
I expected. Yeah.
I know it was, even I had a little bit more of an optimistic view, and that's higher than I thought. But of course, you can still catch COVID with a vaccine. So we'll see. But hopefully, it'd be great if those numbers even start to increase as the season went on.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. And I guess it's a bit of like for me at least, a bit of availability bias, because I feel like the players we hear about more in the news are the ones who are more vocal, and maybe the ones who are like vaccine skeptics or unvaccinated. So I guess that's why I had in my mind that the percentage was a lot smaller than 93. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. It's good. It's important to have those numbers.
Totally. So that's our take. I also realized we kind of skipped over one question, so I'm just going to quickly bring over this. Like we kind of talked a little bit about this, but which team's going to have the biggest disappointment of going to be one of the biggest, which will be the biggest disappointment of the 2021 season? Ravi, do you have a pick for that? Who do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be not too much of a surprise, but I think it's worth understating Houston Texans. They've had a catastrophic is almost an understatement off season. I think this is the kind of first Deshaun Watson requesting trade, and then him like absolutely tanking his trade value with these lawsuits. And it looks like, there's going to be no easy end in sight. I even heard like the FBI might be investigating certain aspects of this. He's definitely going to be have some sort of a ban placed on him at the end of the whatever investigation ensues by the NFL. So it's like, and that's just going to destroy his trade value. In the meantime, Houston's wrecked. This is the sort of thing that destroys a fan base and will affect them for multiple years. So I think the Houston Texans as a brand, like they're going to be feeling the pain from this. They were already kind of pretty mismanaged, but those years are going to look like like heaven or something compared to the years that are ahead. So hopefully at least they'll get the first pick of the draft. I guess that's the one consolation prize. But yeah, Houston Texans, rough couple of years ahead for sure.
Oh, that's a good one actually. Anirban. Yeah, no, I didn't think about it in that angle because I just assumed they were going to be bad. But yeah, when you put it like that, yeah, like I totally see the Texans as a big disappointment for this upcoming season. And no rebuttal from Anirban on the Texans being a surprising team, right? Isn't that shocking, Ravi?
I mean, for me, I thought of disappointing as which team will underperform. That's how I analyzed it. I didn't really consider the Texans to be in the performing category at all. So it was very difficult for me. Like I wouldn't have been disappointed if they went like 2-15. Like I would have, it wouldn't have surprised me. Like I'd be disappointed if a team I expected to go like, I don't know, 7-10 went 2-15.
So who disappoints you the most in your bond?
Yeah,
I think I expect the Jacksonville Jaguars to be disappointing, and I think we already did.
So a team that won 1-15 last year, that's gonna be just somehow more.
Well, let's think about it, right? They won 1-15 last year, and since then they got the biggest hotshot QB on the market that they possibly could have, right? Trevor Lawrence, who will become the face of the team. Let's face it, he's already the face of the team, and he hasn't thrown a football yet in the regular season. They acquired it like we talked about, Marvin Jones. They also acquired another receiver whose name I believe is slipping my mind. But they also have DJ Chark. I mean, we've talked about their offense already. I think there's a lot of anticipation coming for how well the Jaguars will do with Trevor Lawrence and also the new weapons he has. But I do think that I am really doubtful on how well, like I'm doubtful on the amount of improvement they'll have. Like, yeah, they're not going to go 1-15 as far as I'm concerned, but I don't know if maybe they'll win like 6 games or I don't know. I don't know how well they'll reach because I think there's still a lot of question about their head coach, Urban Meyer. He's been there for 3 years now and hasn't.
I don't know. He's a rookie head coach.
Urban Meyer's. I've heard. Who's the one who's been there for 3 years then?
Not the head coach. The head coach just joined.
Well, okay, because I was reading. I guess I was reading about someone else in that position, but in either case, I don't know how well like the Jaguars. Like I said earlier, I think their problems ran a lot deeper than just like replacing their QB. Like we're replacing Gardner Minshew with a new QB and adding like a wide receiver. And I think there's a lot of hype about Trevor Lawrence, rightfully so. But I still think the other problems kind of holding them back will make them a disappointment compared to where people see them reaching.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. So basically for me, I'm going to go with a fun target because it's just always fun to pick on. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously last season, they finished 12-4, and then they had a terrible, absolutely horrible loss to the Cleveland Browns in the wild card game. And I'm just going to predict them to miss the playoffs this season. So I think that team is just sort of like, they have the talent, but just, I don't know, they always get out-coached in pretty critical situations. They always have a way of just sort of underestimating their opponents. It's like a very predictable thing that happened. Like their loss to the Browns was almost kind of exactly what happened to the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2017. They completely underestimated the Jaguars, and they gave up 45, I think, that game to the Jaguars in 2017. So yeah, 45 points to the Jaguars, Blake Bortles, and 48 points last season to the Cleveland Browns in the wild card game. So I think that team is just going to have a very underwhelming season. They'll still be good, but they'll probably be like, I mean, they'll be like okay, like 8-9 or 9-8 is what I'm probably seeing from them. Maybe 10-7, but yeah, I'm just going to go with them as a disappointment, just because every year they have the talent to be great and they just find a way to mess up. So yeah, that was my question. Yeah.
Does Ben retire at the end of this year?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's interesting because, like, I probably there was speculation he was going to retire last season after, like, his arm is no longer as strong. But I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, maybe he should contact Tom Brady and ask him about his TB12 method, because he's 39 and Brady at 44 still looks great. So maybe Ben needs to maybe needs another chance somewhere. Maybe, I don't know. So that's a good question, Robbie. I actually don't know. I mean, he could retire. I mean, he is pretty old now.
I mean, if you asked me, I would have. If you asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say the Steelers were disappointing. And at this point, I've just seen it over and over again that I just expected no. I was telling my brother, I was one of the few people who said that the Browns would beat the Steelers last year. I did say that, and just because I've seen this tape over and over again. I've seen the Steelers get hyped up a lot, rightfully because of the talent they have. They had some really exciting players like Najee Harris, Juju Smith, Chase Claypool, who I think will make a lot of improvements this season, even though he was excellent last season. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's a bit of morale, maybe a bit of overconfidence. So we've seen a bit of, you could call it arrogance, maybe not as much in the last few years, but definitely when a lot of people were really hyping up the Steelers Patriots matchups in the Brady era. So, you know.
Yeah. I totally see the Steelers. I mean, we'll see. But I mean, yeah, so that's there. All right, so now a couple more questions. Which NFL players, like we can just go with one, that's just easier. We'll take a big leap in terms of performance this season. So I'll go with this one, Joe Burrow. Like, I mean, obviously he had a nice season until he tore his ACL, got hurt. I think with him better, they drafted Jamar Chase, and there's still T. Higgins in his second season, and they have running back Joe Mixon. And I think Joe Burrow is going to have an absolutely terrific second sophomore season. So I think he's just going to take a big leap in terms of performance this season. So that's my pick. I don't think the Bengals are still kind of weak. Like overall, like Ravi, I agree, like Sewell would have been good. But I think with their offense now, like they should be a very good offense this season, at least. So that's my pick. Like,
Sorry, where does Sewell go again? It sounds like a great player. What team is he strengthening this season?
Who?
Payne and Sewell.
Oh, he's on the Lions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay, just checking.
Oh, okay, that was sarcastic. Okay. This is gonna be like a back and forth now. I'm looking forward to the Lions hype. Like Ravi, for like Anirban's birthday, you should buy him like a Lions hat now.
I love Detroit. That's do they even sell those? Who knows?
But yeah, anyways. Probably. All right, Anirban, wait. So what's your so who's your breakout player?
I think I might have hinted at this earlier. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be my breakout player. Okay. And well, right, big leaps, right? I think considering the constraints on his performance last year, we all know about the constraints the Cowboys offense had last year with Dak Prescott, their offensive line injuries. You know, we saw even amid all those constraints, even amid competing against Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, who were two excellent receivers. Amari Cooper is a wide receiver one in pretty much. He had over 1,000 yards. He had 6 touchdowns, and there were games actually. And he had ability. He's just very athletic. I believe he had like an 85-yard receiving touchdown, or like really big numbers. He's really fast. I believe he also helps with like punt returns and kickoff returns. I think he's going to be excellent this year. I think he has a solid chance of actually overtaking Amari Cooper. Definitely in terms of long-term vision, the Cowboys, he should be the long-term receiving option. But yeah, I mean, Amari Cooper's a little boom bust. He's consistently in the 10 to 20 wide receiver ranking category, I'd say, which is fine. But I really think CeeDee Lamb has the opportunity now with the Cowboys offense, hopefully back in full steam. I think he has the opportunity to be really special. I'll be watching him pretty closely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good one. Ravi, who are you picking?
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit more of a recent pick, but I have Gus Edwards. I think the fact that J.K. Dobbins is now out for the entire season is going to be a huge increase in his play time and his usage. I believe the Ravens are still going to be pretty much by committee, but it's clear that he's going to lead that committee.
Wait, is he going to lead that committee, or is Lamar Jackson going to lead that committee?
Okay, well, Lamar Jackson, if you could say he's in the committee, he will probably lead it. But if anything, that just draws less attention for when Edwards does get the ball. And one other thing is that the Ravens are projected of the games they play, 12 of them will be against defenses that ranked in the bottom half of run defenses in the NFL. So I think there's a lot of potential just with the schedule too for him to have a really big season. And the Dobbins injury only increases that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Gus Edwards should be a pretty utilized player this season. So yeah, no, those are all interesting picks. So okay, let's go to number 9. Question 9. Who wins NFL MVP this season? Robbie, let's hear your pick first.
I got Anirban's favorite player, Kyler Murray.
Okay.
I think he'll have a big step forward, and I think even if the Cardinals don't make it all the way to the Super Bowl, he's going to have a great season. I think also a lot of the good candidates, you might get some voter fatigue. So if Patrick Mahomes, he'll definitely put up a great season, but I think the bar for him to win MVP again is higher than Murray. So I think Murray's the guy.
Okay. Yeah, Anirban?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just going to be take your pick of the top 5 QBs in the league, because that's just really the way it works. I think, I don't really see any reason it wouldn't be Patrick Mahomes, but I think last year, I guess we saw Lamar Jackson posting up like the best.
Last season was Aaron Rodgers.
Right. But
2019 was Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, 2019. Okay. It's funny how last year was a blur to me in some ways.
Wow. Anirban is the Lions fan. He just completely forgot about last year, dude.
Well, I mean, I feel like he's probably forgotten every season then, right?
Hey, I'm not a Lions fan, but Aaron Rodgers got it last season. I don't know if he'll get this season. But yeah, I don't really want to say Kyler Murray, because I know last season he was I really like him as a player, but I know he started really strong and then started to struggle a little bit in terms of yardage and output towards the second half of the season. And I'm kind of curious to see what trajectory he starts off with this season. So that's one thing. And my understanding is he still has Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not too familiar with any other receiving acquisitions they've gotten this window. I don't recall any big names going there. So yeah, I'm not.
You don't need big games to have big names to have an MVP season. It's down to the player.
You don't need big names, that's true. But look, his first few games of the season, first 5-6, yeah, I'd say that's MVP pace. I wouldn't say the second half of the season was MVP pace. That's not to say that was bad. It just
he got injured too. So I think if he's a mobile quarterback, and I think that can kind of work against you sometimes if you get injured, because then half the dimension of his game is hurt and he has to pass more. He is a good passer. I mean,
he's a good passer. Yeah. He has options. Hail Mary. And he's a good passer. I just don't know if he could. I don't know. I'd say I'll go with Josh Allen. I'll say that.
Wow. Okay.
I think he made big strides last season. He made big strides last season.
The Patriots must beat them mathematically for your.
Wait, why would they beat them mathematically?
Well, I think
I said they go 13-4. What if they go 14-3? That's possible. We play them twice. We could split odds. Anyway, what I'm saying is, out of all of them, I think he's had the relative improvement around him that will let him take a step up. Kyler Murray, I don't know if he's had that improvement around him. I know Josh Allen has because he's gone Emmanuel Sanders. John Brown as their third wide receiver was pretty non-existent in terms of the passing game last season. Emmanuel Sanders is coming as he was only second to Michael Thomas in New Orleans. And I think that's going to be a leg up for him. All the other players I'm looking at, I know that they're excellent. I don't know how much better they'll be. Or I don't know if they had extra players around them this window.
So yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I mean, so Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, yeah, those are good ones. So the thing with me, when I have to pick the MVP is since 2013, this is a stat now. I guess since Adrian Peterson won the MVP in 2012, he's a running back, and the Vikings were a wild card team that year. But since 2013, every MVP has been on a team that was either the top 2 seed in either the AFC or the NFC. So you can go with Peyton Manning in 2013, Aaron Rodgers in 2014, and then Cam Newton in 2015, Matt Ryan in 2016, Tom Brady 2017, Mahomes in 18, Lamar Jackson 19, and Aaron Rodgers 20. All of those quarterbacks were on teams that were either the 1 or the 2 seed in either conference. So I think that trend is going to continue next year. It makes sense, right? It's usually the quarterback for one of the best teams in the league. So my picks for the 1 and 2. So based on that, I picked the Kansas City Chiefs to be the 2 seed in the AFC this season behind the Tennessee Titans. So I'm just going to go with Patrick Mahomes for that reason. Last season, he probably would have won it too, but Aaron Rodgers had a terrific regular season, 48 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So I think this time I'm going with Mahomes, and that's probably a good thing because the MVP curse is definitely a real thing at this point. So that bodes well for Tom Brady to go on another Super Bowl run. But that's actually, we'll see about if he can get it this time. So, okay, that's our MVP picks. And now the last but not least, Super Bowl 56 predictions. It's going to be held in Inglewood, California, which is also Hollywood. So let's start with Anirban on this one. What is your Super Bowl 56 pick? The team, and also give the score as well. It's just always fun to hear these.
All right. Well, for the NFC pick, I think I have to go with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously life never works out exactly like predictions, but if you're going to make any predictions, it just has to be on your available data. And I think the Buccaneers are by far what I'm hearing as the strongest in the NFC entering the season. So I think that's gonna be pretty clear. And I will say, in the NFC, I would expect them to fight off the likes of the Cowboys or the Cardinals. There are a few teams that would be fun, but I think the Buccaneers will take it. AFC is a little complicated. I think there's 4 or 5 teams that would, at least 4 teams in my opinion that would feel justified reaching the Super Bowl. I could say Chiefs again, but I would like to be a little more interesting. So maybe I'll say that this year the Ravens could do it. I've heard that the Ravens are a potential breakout. Though I will say, I could see it being pretty tight. I don't think the Bills will make it to the Super Bowl this year, but maybe they'll reach the AFC. I think they'll reach the AFC. So yeah, I'll go with the Ravens just to be a little interesting. So
Who wins?
Yeah, I'd say the Buccaneers win.
Score prediction?
And for score prediction, I'll say it's an offensive slugfest. I'll say it's 35 to 31.
Wow. Okay. All right. So Brady. Okay. So he wins his 8th Super Bowl by beating the Ravens. Okay. Ravi, what's your pick?
All right. So for me, I think last year we were deprived of the State Farm Super Bowl, but this year we get it. Chiefs Packers. I think the Chiefs have only this year they've made some additions to their offensive line, which was a big problem in the Super Bowl against the Bucks. So I think those changes will help, and I think Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and oh my God,
Tyreek Hill.
I can't believe I blanked on his name. Will do a great job this year again, and they'll make it back to the Super Bowl. For the Packers, I think the Bucks are a great team, but if they falter, I think the Packers are definitely the second best team. And I would like to see Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl again. So Maybe this is a little bit more of a personal or some what I would like to see happen. And then in terms of who wins, I'll go with a score of 34-27, and the Chiefs won it this year.
Okay. All right. So you got the
Ravi,
Packers.
I hope you're playing some Madden with those predictions.
God.
Okay. So my pick, last question. So I do have the Packers in the Super Bowl, Ravi, like you, but I think we're going to once again be denied a State Farm Bowl because the Buffalo Bills are going to win the AFC. And in an upset, the Buffalo Bills will defeat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers to win their first Super Bowl, 38-34. That's my prediction. Bills over Packers. I'm just gonna have some fun. I don't know. It's just gotta, at this point, you just gotta, I don't know. Like, I mean, I see this sort of like as like an Eagles Patriots scenario where pretty much everyone had thought the Patriots would beat the Eagles, and that didn't happen. So I think, I mean, I don't know. Like the Bills, usually sometimes we underestimate a team that hasn't won a Super Bowl, how hungry that whole team is to kind of give the fan base a championship. So I think this season is a season the Buffalo Bills will lift up the Lombardi Trophy and bring it back to the North. I guess it was already in the Northeast, right? I guess it is still in the East Coast, but they'll bring it back to the Northeast area, just not in New England. So, okay, yep, Bills over Packers is my pick. So anyway, that's it for the show. Yeah, this was a very long one, and we are all very excited for the NFL season. Ravi and Anirban, glad to have you back on. So, and Anirban, hopefully we'll be back next week to cover the week 1 against the Dolphins. And Ravi, of course, if you ever want to come on an episode, a preview or post game this season for the Pats, more than welcome to. Just and yeah, so this should be a very very exciting season. A lot of unknowns that are going to be there for the Patriots. No longer really much of a guarantee of how the season will go anymore. So yeah, anything else you guys want to say before we end the show?
Looking forward to it.
Excited.
Right. Okay. So that's going to do it for this week. And we will be back next weekend to preview week 1, Patriots versus Dolphins at Gillette Stadium. So stay tuned for a preview for that game. All right. Until then, have a good weekend, everyone. Enjoy the Labor Day weekend, and we will be back next weekend. Have a good one. See ya.